When Earth froze, life nearly ended. The Cryogenian period turned the planet into a snowball. Oceans sealed under ice. Mountains vanished beneath white silence. The world slept for millions of years. You drift over endless glaciers. The wind hums across frozen continents. Sunlight reflects like mirrors across sheets of ice. Beneath the surface, tiny microbes cling to life, hidden in cracks and pockets of salt water. They wait. They endure. Temperatures drop below anything Earth has known. Volcanoes choke under frost. The air grows thin and still. Day after day, snow falls over deserts, forests, and oceans. From the equator to the poles, the planet becomes one frozen sphere, shining pale in the dark void. Yet life refuses to die. Beneath the glaciers, warmth seeps from the core. Volcanoes awaken, releasing carbon dioxide. The sky thickens. Heat slowly builds. After millions of silent years, the ice begins to melt. Rivers form again. Oceans breathe. The Cryogenian period reshaped Earth forever. It tested life and forced it to adapt. From those frozen survivors came complex forms: plants, animals, and humans. Every heartbeat today echoes the endurance of those ancient cells. Close your eyes. Hear the distant winds of that frozen age. Feel the stillness of a planet asleep, waiting to wake. This was the age when Earth became a snowball, and life learned how to survive the impossible. You open your eyes to silence. The kind of silence that fills an empty planet. No waves, no birds, no sound of rain. Only wind gliding across ice. You stand on a world of white. The air is thin and dry. The ground beneath you is frozen rock covered in layers of snow. The horizon stretches forever. The sun hangs low and pale, its light reflected in every direction by sheets of frost. You breathe slowly, and your breath turns to mist before fading away. Millions of years ago, Earth slipped into deep cold. Oceans turned to solid ice. Mountains disappeared under glaciers that reached from pole to pole. The Cryogenian period had begun. The planet became a frozen sphere in space. Scientists call it Snowball Earth. To you, it feels like a dream where time has stopped. Look around. Continents no longer carry forests or rivers. Every surface shines with crystal frost. The sea is silent, locked under thick ice. Even the equator, once warm and wet, lies under frozen seas. The ice may be a kilometer thick, pressing on the crust below. Beneath it, water still moves slowly, dark and dense. Small pockets of liquid hide near volcanic vents, the last refuge of life. The wind moves in long waves across the surface. It gathers snow and lays it down again, layer upon layer, building a white desert that never melts. Daylight changes little. The tilt of the planet offers no relief, only a faint rhythm between dim days and darker nights. You feel the stillness of a planet asleep. Under the frozen crust, heat escapes from the core. Volcanoes whisper beneath the ice. Their plumes of gas rise through cracks, reaching the frozen sky, only to fall again as frost. The atmosphere grows thin as carbon dioxide drops out of the air, trapped in snow. The greenhouse warmth fades. The more the planet cools, the more sunlight bounces away. The cycle feeds itself until almost every trace of warmth is gone. You move slowly across this landscape. The ground is smooth, like glass. In some places, sharp peaks of blue ice stand where winds have carved the surface. In others, dust from ancient deserts lies buried under clear layers, frozen in place for millions of years. The planet keeps a record of every storm inside the ice. The ocean life that once filled warm seas has vanished from sight. Algae, once floating near the surface, now lie trapped beneath the frozen lid. Yet some survive. Tiny cells drift in thin layers of brine caught between sheets of ice. In these narrow worlds, life clings to the faint warmth of sunlight that filters through. They move slowly, feeding on minerals and chemical traces. Each breath they take is a promise of survival. Far below, near volcanic vents on the ocean floor, heat escapes from Earth's core. Around these vents, small colonies of microbes gather. They feed on sulfur and iron, drawing energy from chemical reactions. They live without sunlight, without air, without rest. They are the ancestors of all complex life that will come after. You sit near one of these vents, feeling the slow pulse of the planet's heart. Warm bubbles rise through black water, bursting softly beneath the ice. The temperature here is only a few degrees above freezing, but it is enough. Life continues, hidden and patient. Above, the world remains silent. From space, Earth looks like a white pearl. Clouds move in slow spirals, bright against the frozen surface. The oceans are locked, the continents invisible. Only the faint glow of volcanoes breaks the endless white. Time stretches. Thousands of years pass. Ice thickens. The pressure builds. Continents grind beneath glaciers. Mountains erode. Dust settles over the frozen seas. The air grows drier as water locks inside the ice. Each winter feels the same as the last. You feel no rush. Everything here happens slowly. The sun still rises and sets, but the warmth it brings is too weak to change anything. The planet drifts through space, wrapped in silence. Stars reflect off the ice, shining twice, once in the sky, once on the ground. Sometimes meteors fall through the thin air, leaving brief trails of fire that fade quickly. Their heat melts small craters that soon freeze again. Even destruction is quiet here. Nothing lasts long enough to make a mark. Beneath the surface, though, change never stops. Volcanoes release gases that rise and collect under the ice. Carbon dioxide begins to build again. Slowly, almost without notice, the air thickens. Each eruption adds a little more. Over millions of years, this invisible blanket will grow, trapping heat that will one day end the long freeze. But for now, you rest. You hear nothing except the low hum of wind over endless plains. You think of the world that came before, the warm oceans, the green coasts, the rain. All gone, waiting beneath ice, you close your eyes. The stillness feels complete. The planet is not dead. It is only waiting. Somewhere deep below, life holds on. Each cell carries memory, purpose, endurance. When the warmth returns, they will bloom again, filling the seas with color. For now, the Earth dreams in white. The Cryogenian period has taken over, and everything sleeps beneath its frost. The silence of this frozen age fills you with calm. You breathe once more, slow and steady, feeling the weight of time settle around you. This is the beginning of the story of survival. The age when the world became a snowball and life refused to fade. You hear the slow rhythm of time moving backward. Long before the planet froze, heat and motion shaped every shore. Continents drifted. Volcanoes poured gases into the air. Oceans shimmered with green algae that breathed oxygen into the sky. Then the balance shifted. The land pulled carbon from the air. The warmth faded. Step by step, the planet lost its shield against the cold. You stand above an ancient shoreline. Waves no longer reach the coast. The sea lies far below, locked under forming ice. Snow begins to fall each day, thicker than before. White dust spreads from high mountains, carried by cold winds toward the equator. Each flake reflects sunlight back into space. The surface cools further. The reflection grows stronger. You sense the trap closing. Volcanoes still burn along ridges, but their heat cannot fight the growing chill. The air thins, filled with carbon locked in stone. Plants and algae once absorbed it faster than volcanoes replaced it. Over time, greenhouse warmth faded. You watch as blue oceans shift to gray, then to white. Ice expands from the poles until it reaches the tropics. The world crosses a point of no return. Rain turns to snow. Rivers freeze in place. Glaciers crawl over valleys, grinding the land beneath them. The noise of moving ice echoes through empty canyons. You see boulders dragged for miles, leaving deep scars on the bedrock. With each passing year, the ice grows thicker. Sunlight can no longer melt it. The Earth's surface becomes one mirror, shining but lifeless. You move across frozen plains that once grew forests and swamps. Under the snow, traces of ancient life remain. Leaf shapes, shells, coral skeletons, all sealed within frost. They lie preserved, like pages in a frozen book. You touch the surface and feel time suspended beneath your hand. As centuries pass, temperatures drop lower. Average warmth falls below -40. Even near the equator, the sea surface freezes solid. Beneath several hundred meters of ice, liquid water remains, dark and still. Small waves lap against the under-ice ceiling, trapped in darkness. The sun climbs high each day but brings no comfort. Reflection from endless white sends most of its energy back into space. The air above you holds little moisture, little warmth. Every breath feels thin. Each step echoes across the frozen crust. Volcanic chains continue to erupt. You see red glow beneath distant storms of ice dust. Each eruption releases carbon dioxide, slowly feeding the sky with invisible gas. At first, the effect is too small to matter. Yet time does not stop. Over millions of years, that slow buildup will change everything. You look toward the horizon. The line between land and sky is hard to find. Clouds blend with snow. Even light has a different sound here, soft and endless. When you close your eyes, you can sense the planet's rotation beneath your feet, silent and heavy. Life hides in shadows. Near volcanic vents, small colonies of bacteria cling to stone. They form thin mats, glowing faintly under mineral light. Around them, bubbles rise and burst quietly. They feed on chemicals, turning sulfur and iron into energy. Each reaction keeps them alive through centuries of darkness. These small survivors hold the key to the planet's future. Far above, dust from meteor impacts settles onto ice. Some particles come from space, rich in metals. Others come from volcanic ash that circles the world before falling again. Layer by layer, they mark the passing of time. If you could cut through the ice, you would read history in bands, each one a memory of storms, eruptions, and silence. Continents keep moving, though slowly. As they drift, mountain chains rise and erode. The position of land around the equator helps the freeze endure. Large land masses near the tropics reflect more sunlight, preventing thaw. Ocean currents slow and stop. Without warm water circulation, the poles remain locked in deep cold. You kneel beside a crack in the ice. Beneath it lies a black ocean. Tiny crystals form along the edge, shimmering in the weak light. You hear faint movement, a sound like breathing. It is the whisper of trapped water shifting under pressure. The planet still moves, even here, above you. Thin clouds stretch across the sky. They glow pink as the sun sets behind them. The color lasts only a moment before darkness returns. Nights are long. Stars burn clear and sharp. From this frozen surface, the Milky Way looks endless. You sense how small everything feels against it. Sometimes lightning flashes over volcanic peaks. The sky glows blue for a second. Then the world is quiet again. Snow falls softly, adding another layer to the planet's deep sleep. Millions of years pass in silence. The ice becomes kilometers thick. Beneath its weight, the crust bends. Pressure forces water into liquid pockets. Heat from below gathers there. Small lakes form under glaciers. In those places, microbes continue to grow. They divide slowly, using minerals as fuel. You follow them in thought, watching their struggle through ages of cold. These tiny lives shape the path ahead. When warmth returns, they will spread across oceans and evolve into complex forms. Without them, the story would end here, but for now, the Earth remains a mirror world. Winds trace smooth arcs across its face. Sunlight glitters off ridges and valleys. The air holds no scent, no sound beyond the faint hiss of snow. You rest on a high plateau. From here you see the curve of the frozen horizon. The view is endless, clean, and still. This is Earth during the height of the Cryogenian. A world asleep under a blanket of ice, waiting for the slow breath of volcanoes to bring it back to life. You begin to sense change. It is slow, almost hidden, like a heartbeat beneath stone. The air above the frozen world grows thicker. Volcanoes deep below the ice continue their quiet work. Every eruption sends carbon dioxide into the sky. With no rain to wash it away, the gas gathers and stays. Layer by layer, it builds a blanket of warmth around the planet that at first, nothing looks different. The snow still falls. The wind still hums over frozen plains. But the balance has begun to shift. The faint heat from volcanoes adds to the trapped gas above. The air absorbs more sunlight. The planet begins to breathe again. You move across the same vast ice fields, but now you notice subtle signs. The surface is not as hard. Thin streams of water run along cracks. The edges of glaciers glisten under the pale sun. Small pools form, reflecting faint light into the sky. The silence changes tone, like a long-held note softening. Volcanoes break through in places where the crust is thin. You see dark peaks rising from the white. Ash falls over the ice, spreading gray dust that absorbs more heat. Each eruption warms a small circle around it. Over time, these circles grow and merge. The planet, once locked in stillness, begins to loosen its hold on the cold. You watch as gases gather in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide climbs past levels far higher than before the freeze. The air thickens, trapping sunlight more efficiently. The greenhouse effect begins to reverse the long winter. Slowly, the global temperature rises. Under kilometers of ice, the oceans start to stir. Pressure and warmth break the frozen lid from below. Liquid water moves again, carrying minerals, gases, and ancient life. Microbes that had survived in pockets now spread. They feed on new nutrients, releasing oxygen and shaping the chemistry of the sea. The ice above begins to crack. Long lines stretch for miles, glowing blue in the sunlight. The sound of fracture echoes across valleys. Great blocks shift and collapse into each other. For the first time in millions of years, the surface is alive with motion. You hear the deep groan of glaciers giving way. Pools of meltwater widen into lakes. Their surfaces steam faintly in the weak warmth. Beneath them, dark shapes move, tiny organisms returning to open water. The air above them fills with mist. Each breath you take feels thicker, heavier with moisture. Volcanic islands rise through melting ice, releasing more gas and heat. The dark rock soaks up sunlight, accelerating the thaw. Rivers of meltwater rush across plains that once lay buried under frozen mountains. The first rain in eons falls from the thickening clouds, striking ice that hisses under its touch. You stand in the middle of this slow awakening. The world does not roar back to life. It stirs. It breathes. It sighs as warmth creeps through its frozen veins. The air smells faintly of sulfur and wet stone. Steam rises from cracks. Water drips from cliffs in steady rhythm. Over centuries, the ice retreats. The oceans darken again, absorbing sunlight instead of reflecting it. Each drop of melting ice adds to the sea. The water level rises. Glaciers shrink and pull back toward the poles. Valleys reappear, carved deep by their passing weight. You walk along one of these valleys. The walls glisten with meltwater. Stones long hidden beneath the ice see daylight once more. The ground feels soft under your feet. You can hear small streams joining to form rivers. The earth, after millions of years of silence, has found its voice again. Clouds build thicker in the sky, heavy with vapor. Storms form, releasing rain that washes dust and ash into the oceans. Minerals feed the returning life within. Algae bloom in green swirls beneath the surface. The first color returns to the planet. The atmosphere changes with them. As algae photosynthesize, oxygen rises again. The balance shifts toward a climate that can support larger, more complex organisms. This is the beginning of recovery, but the process is not calm everywhere. In many regions, rapid melting floods valleys and reshapes coastlines. Glacial lakes burst, sending torrents across the land. Volcanic activity remains high, releasing both heat and ash. The planet rebuilds through chaos and renewal. You look from a high ridge as sunlight breaks through cloud. The ice sheets below gleam with rivers of silver meltwater. Steam rises in plumes where lava meets ice. The contrast is sharp, fire and frost sharing the same breath. The sound is constant, water running, ice cracking, gas hissing from vents. The greenhouse effect continues to rise. With so much carbon in the air, Earth warms quickly. Oceans expand, and the last traces of ice near the equator vanish. What once was a frozen mirror becomes a blue planet once more. The surface glows with life and motion. From space, Earth now looks transformed. The white sphere turns blue and green again. Clouds drift freely. The cycle of rain and evaporation resumes. Life begins to flourish in every corner left untouched by the freeze. You rest by a shoreline where waves now lap gently. The air feels heavy and warm. The cry of wind has softened into a breeze. The sound of flowing water replaces the silence of frost. Each ripple, each drop, carries the memory of the frozen age. Deep within the ocean, microbes multiply. Over time, they will evolve into larger, more complex life forms. The return of oxygen and warmth sets the stage for new possibilities. The long sleep of the Cryogenian has ended, but its lessons remain written in the planet's crust and climate. You close your eyes and listen. The sound of melting becomes the sound of life returning. You can almost feel the heartbeat of the planet grow stronger. What once seemed lifeless has transformed into a world ready for growth. The Earth has survived the impossible. It has thawed itself from the grip of eternal ice. The story will now move forward, from survival to expansion, from stillness to abundance. The next age will bring new forms, new oceans, and new skies. But for now, the planet rests between two worlds, one of ice, one of life, quietly preparing for the dawn of change. You wake to a different sound. The whisper of ice has faded. In its place comes the steady rhythm of water, the soft rush of rain on stone, the quiet pulse of waves against new shores. The great thaw is complete. The world that once slept under ice now breathes again. You walk across land newly revealed. The ground is wet and dark, rich with minerals released from melting glaciers. Rivers carve paths through soft valleys, cutting deep into layers of ancient iceborne rock. Dust and debris from the frozen age wash into the oceans, feeding them with nutrients. Everywhere you look, the color has changed. White has given way to green and blue. The air feels heavier, warmer. Clouds rise higher. The sky carries the scent of rain and salt. The oceans, once silent under kilometers of ice, are alive again with sound. Small waves ripple across open water, carrying light deeper than before. Beneath the surface, the first true revival begins. You look down into the sea. Tiny cells float in endless patterns. Cyanobacteria, the same kind that survived in frozen cracks, now thrive in sunlight. They spread across oceans, turning them shades of green. As they multiply, they release oxygen. The air becomes rich again, slowly reshaping the balance of gases that life depends on. This new oxygen feeds chemical reactions in the atmosphere. It creates layers that protect the surface from harsh radiation. The Earth, for the first time in millions of years, has a stable shield above it. The world is ready to grow complex again. In the oceans, algae and simple eukaryotic cells evolve new ways to live. They form colonies, then tissues, then structures with purpose. These early forms are small, soft-bodied, fragile, but they mark the first steps toward complexity. You follow currents through shallow seas. Light filters through the water in golden rays. Suspended particles shimmer, drifting like dust in air. You see strange shapes on the seafloor, flat, frond-like organisms waving gently. They are immobile, feeding on nutrients carried by the current. Some are discs pressed into the sediment. Others resemble mats or leaves. These are the first signs of the Ediacaran biota, the ancestors of multicellular life. The world above remains simple, but beneath the surface, evolution is gathering speed. With oxygen rising, metabolism grows stronger. Energy flows faster through living systems. The chain of life lengthens. Single cells begin to specialize. Colonies organize. The building blocks of animals appear. You drift over the seafloor and see communities forming. Some organisms attach to rocks, others float freely. They reproduce, spread, and adapt to new environments. For millions of years, these quiet developments shaped the future of biology. No noise, no drama. Only steady progress written in the language of survival. Meanwhile, continents continue to shift. As tectonic plates move, shallow seas form around their edges. These regions become nurseries for life. Sunlight penetrates the water easily here, fueling photosynthesis. Sediments rich in minerals support growth. Every tide leaves behind layers of organic matter, building new soils for the ages ahead. You rest on a coastline where waves lap softly against warm rock. The air hums with humidity. The sun sits low, shining through clouds of mist. You can almost feel the weight of new beginnings in the air. Each drop of water carries oxygen and dissolved carbon, raw material for the next leap in life's story. Over time, the Earth stabilizes. Temperatures level. The greenhouse gases that once saved the planet begin to settle. Carbon becomes locked again in rocks and oceans, balancing the climate. Seasons return. The cycle of life and death begins to shape the surface once more. You walk along the shore during one of these early dawns. The light reflects in soft gold over the sea. The wind carries warmth. Waves bring fragments of algae and microbial mats onto the sand. As they dry, they leave behind thin films that shimmer and crack. These fragile remains hint at the complexity to come. Early patterns of structure and form that evolution will refine again and again. Far out in the ocean, larger life takes shape. Some organisms grow into tubular forms, others develop radial symmetry. They do not yet have bones, shells, or movement as you know it, but they live in organized communities. This marks the threshold of multicellular evolution. You close your eyes and listen. The sound of water covers everything. It is calm, steady, endless. The harsh silence of the frozen world feels distant now. The earth is young again, alive again. Deep in the ocean trenches, new ecosystems form around hydrothermal vents. The same volcanic heat that once melted the snowball now supports life in complete darkness. Bacteria feed on chemicals, forming mats that sustain worms and other primitive creatures. Each vent is a city of energy, built from the same forces that nearly ended everything. The story feels circular. The same heat that froze and thawed the planet now fuels the next step of evolution. Life adapts not by chance, but by endurance. What survived the cold now thrives in warmth. What once hid in cracks now fills the seas. You look up toward the stars. The planet spins beneath you, glowing blue. Its surface no longer mirrors light, it absorbs it. The atmosphere shimmers with moisture and balance. You can sense stability, a rare gift in the history of worlds. The Cryogenian is over. The Ediacaran has begun. The great freeze that nearly ended life has instead prepared the stage for its expansion. The minerals ground by glaciers enrich the seas. The gases built up during the thaw create the air that complex life needs. Out of stillness came renewal. You walk once more across the coastline as night falls. The waves glitter under starlight. The same stars that watched over a frozen world now reflect in open water. The air feels mild. The earth breathes freely. This age of recovery will not last forever. New challenges will come. But in this calm, in this slow rhythm of wind and wave, you feel the quiet triumph of survival. The planet has endured, adapted, and begun again. As you listen, the sea hums softly, the heartbeat of a living world that has learned to thrive after the cold. Every ripple, every faint sound, is part of the same message. Life continues. You rest by the water's edge. The world feels warm now, balanced, and full of quiet movement. The long freeze is over, and life has begun to bloom in places once buried under kilometers of ice. Oceans stretch wide and deep, carrying light farther than before. The air is rich in oxygen. The cycle of birth and renewal has taken hold. You look beneath the surface. The sea glows with faint light from billions of microorganisms. Algae drift in patterns shaped by current and tide. They form vast green clouds that stretch for hundreds of miles. With each pulse of sunlight, they grow, divide, and release more oxygen. The ocean becomes a living engine, feeding the air, the rocks, and the future on the shallow seafloor. Larger life begins to take form. Soft-bodied creatures spread across the sand. Some rise like fronds, swaying gently in the current. Others flatten into discs or ribbons, pressed into the sediment. They are simple, silent, and slow, but their existence marks the beginning of complex life on Earth. You follow one current, watching it move over these early organisms. They have no eyes, no bones, no shells. They feed by absorbing nutrients from the water around them. They live by the rhythm of light and dark. Each night they rest. Each day they bloom again. These creatures belong to a world still learning what life can be. They do not compete or hunt. They coexist, forming mats and clusters across the seafloor. Some anchor themselves in soft mud. Others drift freely until they find calm water where they can stay. In this still ocean, evolution experiments quietly. You see strange patterns emerging. Some forms begin to show symmetry, a sense of direction and purpose. Others grow folds or internal spaces that allow them to filter food more efficiently. These small changes mark the early blueprint of animals. It is slow work, measured in millions of years, but steady and sure. Sediments settle over the ocean floor, preserving impressions of these creatures in stone. Their outlines will one day become fossils, silent records of the first multicellular life. Each layer captures a moment in the slow dance of evolution, showing how the planet moved from simple cells to organized forms. The environment helps them grow. Glacial erosion has filled the oceans with nutrients: iron, phosphorus, and calcium. Every river carries minerals from mountains newly exposed by melting ice. The chemistry of the sea shifts, supporting richer ecosystems. Life responds. Diversity increases. The first food webs begin to form. You drift deeper. The light fades to blue, then black. Even here, in the cold and dark, life thrives. Microbes cluster around volcanic vents, feeding on minerals. They form the foundation of a deep ecosystem, one that does not need sunlight. Small, worm-like organisms graze on bacterial mats, marking the beginning of simple animal behavior. You rise again to the shallows. The seafloor glows with faint color. Organisms form colonies that stretch across the bottom, linking together like living carpets. They filter water, exchange chemicals, and build stable communities. Cooperation becomes a strategy for survival. Over time, oxygen levels continue to rise. The air above the sea grows breathable for future life. Ozone forms high in the atmosphere, blocking radiation and protecting the surface. For the first time, the planet's systems work in balance. Atmosphere, ocean, and life feeding each other in a stable loop. You rest your hand on the surface of the water. It feels alive. Each ripple carries particles of plankton, each drop filled with the story of growth. The world that once froze in silence now hums with activity too small to see but too vast to stop. The continents move again. Tectonic plates shift, building new coastlines and mountain ranges. These changes shape ocean currents, redistributing warmth. The planet becomes more dynamic, more open to change. Each shift creates new habitats for life to explore. Storms roll across the sea. Lightning flashes over waves. Rain falls in heavy sheets, carrying nutrients back into the water. The ocean surface glows with plankton responding to the new supply. Even in calm darkness, their faint light flickers like distant stars beneath the waves. You imagine the planet from above. The Earth now shines blue again, with hints of green swirling through the seas. Clouds move in slow spirals, feeding rain into rivers and valleys. The land is still bare of trees and animals, but the stage is set. The next steps of evolution wait below the surface. In these shallow seas, small creatures begin to move. Some glide along the seafloor, leaving trails behind. They respond to light and chemical signals, simple senses that guide them toward food and safety. Movement changes everything. It allows life to spread, to compete, to adapt. Each generation brings new forms. Some grow thicker skins to resist decay. Others develop internal channels to transport nutrients. Evolution rewards efficiency. Step by step, life becomes more capable, more aware. You stay still, listening to the ocean's rhythm. It beats like a slow heart, steady and calm. The planet feels alive in every direction, above, below, within. The memory of ice lingers only in distant mountains, where glaciers still sit as pale reminders of the long winter. The world no longer feels fragile. It feels awake. The Cryogenian taught life endurance. The Ediacaran teaches it structure. Together, they build the foundation for everything to come. You watch the horizon fade into gold as sunlight touches the ocean's surface. The light dances across the waves, glittering like the promise of a future still forming. You breathe deeply, feeling the quiet strength of a world reborn. In this peace, evolution continues. Slowly, silently, cells organize into patterns that will one day move with intent, see with eyes, think with minds. The blueprint of all future creatures begins here. In the calm after the freeze, you close your eyes again. The sound of water surrounds you. The air is warm, the sea gentle. The earth has survived, and in its survival, it has learned to create. The long journey from ice to life continues, carried by the same quiet force that once kept a single cell alive beneath miles of frozen ocean. The story is not ending. It is preparing. The next age will bring sudden change, sudden growth, and the explosion of life that will shape the planet forever. But tonight, in this still moment, the Earth rests between past and future, at peace, alive, and full of. You drift through time again. Millions of years pass like soft waves on the shore. The warmth holds steady. The oceans stay full and rich. The quiet world begins to stir. What once floated, still and simple, now starts to move with purpose. Life is changing. You open your eyes beneath the sea. The water is bright, filled with drifting clouds of plankton. They shimmer like dust in sunlight. In the distance, shapes move that you have never seen before. They twist and roll through the water. Some crawl along the seafloor, leaving winding trails in the sand. The age of animals has begun. You look closer. Small, shell-like creatures scatter across the bottom. They are no longer soft and fragile. They wear armor made of calcium and silica, protection against the new hunters that roam nearby. This new balance of defense and pursuit changes everything. For the first time, survival depends on movement, sight, and speed. The water is alive with motion. Tiny worms burrow through sediment, feeding on organic remains. Trilobites scuttle along the seafloor, their segmented bodies glinting under the filtered light. Their eyes, made of crystal, scan the surroundings for danger. The ocean has become a landscape of awareness. In the open water, jelly-like creatures drift gracefully, catching smaller organisms in their tendrils. Others swim with rhythm, using simple muscles to control their direction. This is no longer the still world of the Ediacaran. It is a place of reaction, strategy, and choice. Life now interacts with life. You rise slowly toward the surface. Above, sunlight bends through clear water. The warmth touches your face. You see shadows move across the brightness, creatures chasing, fleeing, feeding. Each has adapted in its own way. Fins, shells, eyes, and limbs all serve a single purpose: to endure. The seabed is covered in marks. Tunnels, tracks, and burrows tell the story of activity. These patterns are the planet's new language, written by creatures learning to explore their world. You follow a trail that winds across the sand, leading to a small opening where a worm-like body hides from sight. It waits, patient and still, until prey drifts close. Then it strikes. Predation is new. It changes the balance of life. The weak hide, the strong chase. Natural selection shapes everything that follows. In this endless experiment, diversity flourishes. New species appear each generation. Some vanish again, others adapt and survive. You move deeper. Strange forms drift past, spiked shells, ribbon-like bodies, translucent swimmers glowing faintly in the dim light. Each one is unique, yet connected to the same story. The world has become a web of life, dense and complex, feeding on itself, driving evolution forward. Currents shift through narrow valleys in the seabed. These undersea canyons guide the flow of nutrients and create new environments. Life fills every space, from the shallow shores to the deep ocean floor. Coral-like colonies begin to rise, building slow structures of calcium that will one day form reefs. Above them, plankton still float in vast numbers. They remain the silent foundation of all life, turning sunlight into food. Without them, the ocean would return to silence. Every breath you take, even now, carries their legacy. You pause, floating still, and listen. There is no noise here, yet the movement feels loud. Millions of creatures working, feeding, and growing together. The planet feels alive in a way it never has before. The continents continue to drift. Volcanoes erupt along new ridges, releasing minerals into the water. These eruptions feed life as much as they challenge it. Each pulse of ash and lava adds nutrients that fuel the next wave of growth. The Earth, once frozen and lifeless, has become an engine of creation. You imagine standing on land. The ground is barren, quiet, and dry. No trees, no grass, no animals. Only rock and sand. But beneath the surface, in the oceans that circle the globe, life thrives beyond measure. The sea holds the world's heartbeat. The oxygen produced here spreads into the air, slowly thickening the atmosphere. It builds the protection future life will need to reach the land. But that time is still far away. For now, the ocean remains the center of existence, a world of light and motion. You move through a field of small, floating organisms. Some glow faintly, others pulse with rhythm, responding to light. They drift together, forming clouds that darken the water for miles. They feed everything that lives above and below. This quiet cooperation holds the planet in balance. You turn again and see a larger shadow ahead. A strange creature glides past, armored and segmented, with spines along its back and limbs that sweep the water in arcs. It is strong, aware, alive. Its presence feels ancient yet familiar. This is one of the first complex hunters, a sign of the life that will dominate for the next hundreds of millions of years. Each generation grows more complex. Eyes sharpen, nerves connect, muscles strengthen. Life begins to sense time, movement, and intention. The first instincts take shape: hunger, fear, and the will to survive. These instincts will guide every creature to come. You drift near the bottom again. Fossils form where bodies fall. Sediment buries them, preserving their shapes in rock. These records will one day tell the story of this age, the moment when life stopped being simple and began to think, react, and remember. The water hums with energy. You feel it in your chest, soft and constant, like a slow heartbeat. The planet has learned rhythm. Each wave carries the echo of change. Each current whispers of the long journey from ice to awareness. The memory of the Cryogenian still lingers, frozen deep within mountain ice and ocean sediments. It reminds the Earth of endurance. The Cambrian brings curiosity. Together, they complete a cycle: silence, struggle, survival, awakening. You rise toward the surface once more. The light is soft now, golden through the water. The sea seems endless, full of life and motion. Above, the sky reflects the same color, calm and clear. The earth rests in harmony again. You close your eyes. The sound of the ocean surrounds you, steady and endless. The story of the Snowball Earth is complete. From frozen stillness to living sea, from silence to motion, the planet has found balance again. In this calm, you rest. You breathe with the world that once froze and thawed and grew alive again. The story of the Cryogenian has ended, but life has only begun.